warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. This is a chapter on communication and this is the first lecture in this chapter. I am Dr. MP Ganesh from IIT Hyderabad. So this will be the outline of the lecture. We will start with the process of interpersonal communication, which means what are the components of communication and how communication happens. We'll also look at communication styles, which means how different people vary in terms of the way they communicate. We'll also look at a very important component in communication, which is paralinguistic communication and also non-verbal communication. At the organizational context, we will discuss about communication climate, and after that we will talk about specific concepts related to communication within teams. So we'll talk about common information effect, the hidden profile paradigm, and how to manage team meetings. Communication plays a very important role in interpersonal relationships. Without communication, interpersonal relationships cannot exist. In terms of organizational context, communication happens at various levels and in different directions. For example, communication happens from top to bottom, which is in the form of orders, instructions, management decisions, things like that. Communication also happens from bottom up, feedback from the ground or feedback from the assembly line, inputs from the subordinates, and also suggestions. All those things are bottom up communication. They can also be horizontal communication, which involves people communicate with their peers. So organizational effectiveness involves how well communication is carried out in the organization. It is important to focus on communication in organizational context because most decisions in organizations, they depend on the information which is communicated within the organization. If the information which is communicated within the organization is not correct, or if it is insufficient, the decisions made within the organization may fail. That is why it's very important to understand organizational communication. So when we talk about communication in a very general sense, communication involves many components. So for a communication to happen, we need a sender and a receiver. At least two people we need. Sender means the one who has the information and passes on the information to the other person. Receiver is the one who receives the information. So let's say if you want to tell your colleague about the new policy, so you are the sender and the one who receives or the one who listens to it is a receiver. There can be one sender and multiple receivers. There can also be multiple senders and one receiver. There can be multiple senders and multiple receivers. So communication can happen between groups as well. So you may ask me, do we need a receiver? Can there be only one person who can be a sender and the receiver? There can be, but then you yourself are becoming two people. You're talking to yourself. So in that sense, there are two people who are within you who are, they are talking to themselves. So in a very strict sense, we need at least two people to communicate. Okay. So these two people, when they communicate, there should be a message. So it's not just two people standing there means they are communicating. There should be some message which should be passed on from one person to the other person, the sender to the receiver. So what is a message? Message is the purpose to be conveyed. Okay. So what is the purpose of the communication is the message. If the message is not there, there is no need for communication. Even if we are not consciously communicating, sometimes we pass on a certain message without even knowing we are doing it. For example, let's say in a classroom, your body language as a student will convey a certain message to the teacher. As a sender of that message, the student may not necessarily be aware of he or she is sending that message. So it can be unintentional also. Message can be formal or informal, which means if message can be done through in a very systematic way also, maybe a written communication, or a notice board in which communication is made through typed content, vis-a-vis a gossip which happens between two people, or a friendly communication between two people. So communication can happen formally, informally. So there is a sender receiver. Message is something which passes on between the sender and the receiver. Without message there is no communication. Encoding means there is a message. Message means the purpose of the communication. The purpose of the communication is converted into symbols, which means, for example, right now I want to convey my subordinate that I need a particular file. Okay, so this is the message I want to convey. So this message I will convert it into symbol in terms of language. Language is a symbol. Okay, so for example, in this sentence, I want this file. Okay, so each one of it is an abstraction. So what do you mean by I? What do you mean by want? What do you mean by file? Okay, so this message I should convert it in a way that, convert it in a symbol such a way that the other person understands. This, in other words, the symbol should be common between two people. When I say symbol, it means language. For example, I may think in my mother tongue, but if I want to convey this message to my subordinate, I have to convert it into a language which both of us can understand, and also use a vocabulary which both of us can understand. Sometimes language can be same, but the vocabulary can be different. Okay, for example, reinforcement. You would have heard this term reinforcement in learning chapter. So this word reinforcement has different meaning in different contexts. So reinforcement, even though it's an English word, for a civil engineer, reinforcement means something to do with concrete mixture. For a psychologist, reinforcement means something to do with learning. So based on our background, we have different meanings for the same word, same vocabulary. So encoding involves that, converting the message into a language which suits to both the parties, and also selecting vocabulary which both parties will understand. Okay, the fourth element in communication, so there is a sender, there is a receiver, there is a message, and there is a language. Okay, the message is converted into a language, converted in verbal cues. Symbols can also be written cues. Language also involves writing, which is also symbol. Symbol means it represents something. The word apple represents a true apple. Okay, it's not just letters. Apple means there is something which is there, which is a fruit. Okay, so symbol means something which represents the reality, but symbol per se is not the reality. Okay, so language involves a lot of these complexities. Why we need to talk about symbols is, in communication sometimes same symbol may mean different things to different people. For, like I said, reinforcement. Okay, or chair. If I say chair, for me, in my understanding or experience with chair, it might be something where we sit, it's a furniture. Okay, but for a university professor, chair means a position, chair professor. Okay, so the same symbol, different meanings may exist. For example, if you say danger, what is the symbol for danger? In most culture, it is skull and two bones. Okay, but maybe in some culture it means partying, or in some context it means, that symbol means happiness. It can vary from different cultures. So that is where symbols can sometimes cause confusion. So in communication, when you are encoding the message, it is very important to ensure you use symbols which are appropriate and understandable for both the parties. Okay. The fourth element in communication is channel, which means the medium which we use. Medium means how are we communicating? Are you using email, which is an electronic medium? Are you using verbal communication? You're just telling people, or are you using textual communication? Maybe something like a notice which you are putting in a notice board, or letter, or a magazine. Okay, so channel can vary from face to face to video conferencing and things like that. Okay, for example, right now I am communicating to you through video conference, through a recorded video. Okay, so this can be done through video conferencing also, even though I conversate with you through electronic medium. It can be live also. We can do it like through online medium, which helps in live telecasting also, where you can ask feedback and things like that. Okay, so channel, understanding which channel to use or which media to use is a very important decision. Okay, it may sound very simple, but different channels or different mediums have different properties. So if I ask you which channel do you prefer, let's say you want to communicate with someone, which medium do you prefer to communicate? Do you want to send an email? Do you want to talk to them, or you want to call them and talk to them, or you want to meet them face to face? Do you want to do a Skype call, or do you want to record it and send it to them, or you want to do a text message like WhatsApp and things like that? So there are multiple options available. Okay, so which option will you choose? Some of you will say face to face is best. Why? Because it gives you a sense of reality, which means you see the other person and the other person is there. Okay, there is a personal connect. But sometimes we prefer sending emails. For example, if you want to send a message to your boss or to your teacher, or an official conversation or official communication, you want to put it in writing. If there's an email, it means it is, you can in future also you can take that email and say, I have communicated this, the other person has also said this. It is more of a tangible written thing, email. Okay, but will you communicate through email with your friend who's there next to you? Okay, you won't. You would prefer to talk. Or if the friend is in another city, you prefer to call them and talk. Okay, so every medium has its own advantages and disadvantages, and depending on the nature of the communication, is it formal, informal, is it is it personal, or is it just official, or is it urgent, or it is not very urgent? So depending on many factors, we choose the channel. Okay, in fact there are a lot of work which has been done in terms of media usage in communication, which media we use and how that affects communication. Okay, and choice of media also depends on personality of the individual and also cultural context. What I mean to say is, in some cultures, like countries like India, we would prefer to communicate with our boss through email, or we want official communication to happen through email, because there is some level of certainty in that. But informal communication, we prefer to do it via face-to-face communication or telephone and things like that. Okay. Similarly, some people who are introverts, they prefer to write an email rather than talking to people directly. Okay, they are very good in writing long letters and emails. Extroverts, they prefer to talk. They prefer to meet face to face and talk. So which channel we choose depends on many factors: personality, context, culture which they belong to, and things like that. Okay, so there is sender, message, receiver, encoding, which is language, channel, which is the media which we choose, and also decoding which happens. So encoding is you convert, if you are a sender, you convert that message into a particular form of text or a verbal communication, and you deliver it through a channel. Okay, so for example, if you want a file, you can call your subordinate and tell your subordinate, please bring that file, or you can type an email and say bring that file. Okay, so you are encoding, choosing a channel and sending it to the receiver. The receiver again will decode it. Decode it means he or she will try to understand the message and try to make sense out of it. Okay, so you are typing your subordinate, bring the file. Okay, just 2 lines, and just send an email. So this subordinate will not know which file, where to bring, all those things. So he may make certain assumptions. Maybe this is in our last conversation we are talking about this file, so maybe he wants that file. Bring means probably he is there in his office. Okay, so that we should have to go there and give the file. So even though the message sent by the sender is not complete, we try to decode it as a receiver. Decode means try to understand it. Noise means things which are outside these 3 things: sender, receiver and the message. It can be things which may disturb the communication. For example, so noise may not necessarily be physical noise. It can be physical noise also. Let's say we are communicating, you are talking to someone over phone, and there is a vehicle which goes on the road with a huge blaring of horn. Okay, or there is a construction work which is going on, it disturbs. So whatever you said may not reach the other person completely. So that is physical noise. There can also be psychological noise. Psychological noise means you are thinking about something, or you are like disturbed in terms of there is some problem in your personal life, so you may not pay attention. So noise can be psychological also. Or you are hungry, somebody is saying something, but you are like hungry and you are not able to pay attention. Okay, and or it can be social noise also. Social noise means prejudice. You assume that this is what the other person is trying to convey. Okay, or you assume that maybe this person is having some hidden message, or he is not a good communicator. So all those assumptions you make based on the social background you come from and the social background of the other person, those are social noise. Okay, so noise can be physical, psychological or social. So what happens because of noise is it becomes an interference with the transmission, receipt or feedback of the message. So when the sender has some noise, the sender has some physical problem or psychological preoccupation, he or she may not send the message properly. Similarly, receiver also can have problems. From receiving end also there can be noise. So noise is something which interferes with communication. So in a communication we need to reduce the noise, and also encoding should be done in a way that the other person should understand it. Okay, so when you are if you are a communicator, if you are a sender, you should ensure that whatever message I am sending, the language I am using or the symbols which I am using should be comprehensible by the other person. The other person should understand it. Okay, similarly from the receiver's point of view, when you decode it, you should not decode it in a hurry. You should try to understand what the other person is saying. You should listen to the other person. Okay, so the sender should empathize, the receiver should listen. Only then communication will happen properly. And another important thing is channel. Choose a channel wisely. It's not like it's always better to use face to face. Sometimes it is better to use online communication or video conferencing and all those things. Okay, so this is about the whole communication process. So in terms of individuals, people differ in terms of the way they communicate. Like personality, there are styles of communication, which means in most of the communications, if I am of a particular style, I will communicate in a certain way. Okay, It is like introverts, extroverts. So introverts are very they don't socialize much in most of the context. Extroverts, they like to socialize, they like to have more friends in most of the context. Similarly, communication styles also, if you are having a certain style, you tend to use that style in most communication. Okay, so there are 4 styles. The first style is driver. Driver means someone who is like very direct and task oriented. They don't talk about related things or things which are not directly connected to the communication. For example, you must be seeing some people who will not even ask how are you when they meet you. They'll say, I want this, or this is the message. They won't even ask how are you, what happened, all those things. Okay. The other way around is animated. Somebody who's like very enthusiastic, very relationship oriented. So some people, instead of communicating the core message, they'll talk about many things, personal things. Did you eat? What did you eat? What is the latest movie you saw? They'll forget about the real message they wanted to convey. Okay, so those people are animated people. These animated people are also people who use a lot of non-verbal communication. They use a lot of hand movements, body movements, gestures when they communicate. They won't like stand still when they communicate. So these people are animated communicators, which is opposite of drivers. They are like very rigid, very focused. They will convey only the message. They don't worry about, or they don't actually communicate anything about personal information. So these people are drivers. So driver and animated can also be depending on the cultural context. When I say cultural context, in some cultures, in some societies, it's very important to have relationship oriented communication. For example, in Eastern cultures, before we communicate, even in formal communication or official communication, before we give the message, we'll ask many things. How are you? How are your parents? Or how are your children? How is it raining there? All those things. How is the economy? All those things. People communicate many things before coming to the message, because otherwise you will be perceived as a very shrewd person. Okay, they'll think why he is so unfriendly. On the other hand, some cultures, some national cultures, if you are very animated, they'll think why this person is not coming to the point. Why is he wasting my time? Okay, they will think this person is trying to hide something. That's why he is like beating the bush. Okay, so your style, communication style, also depends on the cultural context, and appropriateness of a particular communication style depends on which culture you are exhibiting it. Okay. The third style is amiable style, which means there are some people who are very supportive in communication. They'll always say yes. They will say, I understand, I agree. People who use those kinds of words when they communicate, and they also avoid change and confrontation. They won't confront. Confront means if they don't accept something, they won't openly say I don't accept. They will say yeah, correct, but something like that they will say. They will be like roundabout in giving negative feedback. They won't like to disagree. So these kind of people are amiable people. Analytical people are similar to drivers, but they use a lot of numbers. They use a lot of facts. They won't say I think. They'll say according to this report. Okay, according to this research, or this is what experts say. They will not say I feel, I think, I guess. All those things they won't say. Okay, so these people are analytical style kind of communicators. So again, these styles, appropriateness of the styles depends on which context we are using. It's not like if you are in a particular style you will be successful. In some contexts it's good to be a driver. In some situation it is good to be analytical. In some situations you need to be animated. In some situations you need to be amiable. Okay, so it depends on the context. Okay, so I'll stop here. In the next lecture we'll talk about paralinguistic communication. It's a very interesting topic. How non-verbal communication, or how communication apart from verbal communication makes a difference, and what are those, and they are called paralinguistic communication. We'll talk about in the next lecture. Till then, take care. We'll meet in the next lecture.